Well, welcome back, everyone, to our daily devotions. It is always a joy and a blessing to be with you. And again, as a way of an encouragement, just keep on keeping on, as the scripture says. And we hope that this devotional is one of those tools in your belt to do so. And so we've titled today's installment, Thinking About Your Choices Reveals Wisdom. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to read this devotion. It's a brief one, and then spend some time breaking it down, okay? So listen to this. Being a person of faith doesn't mean you're an airhead, nor do the scriptures call you to leave life's matters to chance. Instead, God desires that you would use the mind He gave you to think in productive and prudent ways. Listen to what Proverbs 13:18 says. Wise people think before they act. Fools don't, and even brag about their foolishness. Whenever you take time to think about your choices, you are revealing maturity and wisdom, the scripture says. The Bible declares that it's utter foolishness for you and I to do otherwise. Taking time to think about your decisions provides opportunities, notice, for prayer and support. You are more likely to pray about problems or responsibilities when you think about them first. Isn't that the truth? However, when you rush from one area of life to another, stress and worry dominate your thoughts. We've all been there. As a result, there are hasty decisions made and sometimes irreversible acts put into play. Thinking and praying before making decisions will always prove to be an indispensable combination in your life. Also, thinking allows you the opportunity to gather valuable input and insight from others. Proverbs 12:15 says it this way: the way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice. Now, it's hard to stop and request guidance if you're always going 100 miles per hour. Taking time to think about your circumstances will bring people to mind that could potentially help. Now, typically, you and I want to lean on those with experience and a godly character. Their words and counsel will provide you with perspective that are sometimes hard to reach on your own. This approach will help you with many areas in your life. For example, finances, parenting, relationships, spiritual walk, and the list goes on. And so thinking about your situation and seeking God and trusted sources will always invite God's blessings. Now, think about this devotion for just a moment, okay? Thinking about your choices reveals wisdom. You know, people are watching you, your family, your friends, coworkers, church friends, neighbors. What do you do when the rubber meets the road? You want to be the type of person that when you're under fire, you're not getting nasty and mean, or you're not going AWOL from your faith. Actually, what was meant to be a distraction in your life, you're using to gain traction in your walk with God. Now, nothing says Christian maturity more than obviously two things: how you treat people, but also how you tackle your troubles and your trials. And when you think through your choices, because you got choices, the enemy doesn't want you to think you have choices when you're tempted or when you're going through troubles. The enemy wants you to think there's only one option, which is to take the bait and sin, or which is to tank, because you know what? I'm a loser anyway, so I'm going to fail anyway. That's the enemy's playbook on that subject matter. However, thinking is a beautiful thing because it reveals something about who you are. It reveals the wisdom of God that's in your life. And that is why these scriptures that we read hit the nail right on the head here, that wise people think through their situations. Only a fool rushes in. You know, I think it was Elvis that talked about fools rush in, right? Well, that's not just about love. Fools rush in on some other things, okay? That king was right on that area, okay? But we want to be the type of people that are thinking. Now, as we mentioned, as we read this, one of the direct benefits to doing this is you begin, see, everybody has a mental remember Rolodexes that were on your, now I'm not talking about a Rolex watch, but a Rolodex that sat on your desk or maybe in your kitchen, and basically that Rolodex had addresses. I think back to my grandmother and Jen's grandmother. They had this Rolodex of addresses, and they wrote them down. And you know what? If you ask them, hey, what was Aunt Betty's phone number, or what was Uncle so-and-so's phone number, they could tell you like that. You ask somebody today what somebody's phone number is, and they got this $1,000 contraption called the phone in their hands, they couldn't tell you what anybody's number is. Hold on, I got to go look it up. I'll share it with you. Okay, so there's a benefit to having a Rolodex. And so the Rolodex, mentally speaking, is that when you take time to think and pray and meditate on God's scriptures, God will bring maybe people to mind that could help you. Maybe it's with an encouraging word. Maybe it's literally that there's a task in your life or a responsibility and somebody can give you a hand with that. Maybe you're getting beat up by a temptation or a trial and you just need some spiritual reinforcement. But when you and I aren't thinking and we're just kind of tanking and letting our bad times do a number on us, then we're not leaving ourselves open to reach out for help, okay? And so the way of the fool, we said, seems right in his own eyes. And so that might seem like the right recourse, but it's not. When we take time to think, God will bring scripture to mind. He'll bring his promises to mind. He'll bring people to mind. As we mentioned in a previous devotion, he'll bring a pathway of escape to mind. Good things happen when you take time to think. Thinking also kind of slows down the onslaught of the enemy, doesn't it? I kind of feel like when you get tempted, like a lot, I used to play basketball years ago. It's like the game starts, and before you look up at the clock to see how much time has expired in the first quarter, it's only been like 2 minutes, and you're already down by like 16 points, okay? The other team has scored 16 points already. That's what it feels like the devil just pounces on you from the opening tap, from the opening bell, the opening whistle, if you will. And so thinking helps you and I to kind of just slow the pace down, to get control of the tempo. And maybe a future devotional could be crafted on that as well. Thinking does help us get control of the tempo, because whether it's temptation or a trial, the tempo just seems to be very fast and very hard to just kind of catch your breath when it's happening. And before you know it, man, you've just been beaten up a lot. And so we want to take time to think. And this will help you and I. We talk so much, Watt, about trusting God, right? Trust God, pray, trust God. Well, it's hard to do that when, again, you're caught up in the cycle of your circumstances, especially if they're adverse circumstances. And so thinking just gives you the opportunity to go, whew. In fact, I encourage you right now as you're watching this devotion or listening, just to take a second and go, just take a deep breath and exhale and take time to think. I think that is a very healthy practice to adopt. And so I close this by saying humility and a teachable attitude will undoubtedly invite God's approval in your life. And so I think when you take time to think, you're showing humility and you're showing an attitude that's teachable before God. And you're inviting God's intervention into your circumstances, whatever they may be. And so whoever said that, Christians just, walk by faith, not by sight, means that you don't think about it, you just do it. That's truly a mistaken interpretation of Scripture. Faith, without question, involves the intellect and the mind. Listen, you can't separate the mind from the interpretation, the maturation, and the application of Scripture. And you certainly can't take the mind and thinking out of the equation when it comes to God's sanctification process. God is constantly working on us, and our job is to be thinking on him. Colossians tells us as we close to set our minds on things above, not on the things of this world. And so, oh boy, the mind, what a great tool we have. So let us think about the choices that we have when we're going through whatever it might be. It will reveal wisdom, and it will provide a pathway to winning. May God bless you, and may he bless your thoughts. We'll see you next time.